Mara Salvatrucha, also known as MS-13, tells a tale of violence springing from the heart of El Salvador and taking firm roots in American cities, starting from the streets of Los Angeles. Today, we take a step into the streets where these vicious gangs live. What is it like to be a member of the MS-13? Let's start from the beginning. The Mara Salvatrucha is often regarded as the most violent gang in the United States. The gang, which originated in the streets of Los Angeles, now has a widespread network that covers Central America and some parts of the U.S. It started as a group of gang members who engaged in violent street fights to protect their own. This leads us to an important question: who were they? Between the 1970s and 1980s, El Salvador was caught up in the fire of a violent revolution. A group of people had come together to fight against the government. They were called Farabunda Marti, National Liberation Front, and claimed to be the voice of the poor and downtrodden of El Salvador. To boost their numbers, they recruited young teenage boys and even children, arming them with weapons to fight. When the war began to die down, the country was in shambles, and thousands of Salvadorans trooped into America as refugees, seeking some respite and refuge. However, their hope for a new life was quickly cut short, as many of them found it hard to get employment. They were often victimized by people from other ethnicities and bullied for their Spanish accents. Not long after, they began to band themselves together to survive and defend each other. This led to the formation of several community gangs and street fights. The young men and boys who had previously fought in the war picked up their arms and weapons again. Thus, though not at war, they were back to fighting again. Mara Salvatrucha, forever Salvador in America's Los Angeles. The MS-13 is now a major source of concern for security operatives in the United States, and the government has continued to intensify efforts to terminate its activities by hunting down and prosecuting several members and leaders of the gang. In 2018, President Donald Trump described the gang members as animals and vowed to send them out of the country in large numbers. 3 years down the line, the MS-13 is still reported to have about 50,000 active members. What makes this mafia so difficult to defeat? Let's look into their operations. The gang operates as community cliques, each keeping to its jurisdiction. In its early days, it was easy to distinguish the members of the gang. People who lived in the neighborhoods where they operated knew they were there, and they knew who they were. They were known for their tough appearances and the multiple tattoos on their faces and bodies, which they flaunted with reckless abandon. It was not only their murderous tendencies that kept people in perpetual fear of them, it was the fact that they were also part of daily life in many communities. It was hard to dodge them. One of their major modus operandi was extortion. People not only had to avoid crossing their paths, but also paid to survive being beaten up or killed by the gang. One notable example of this is MacArthur Park in Los Angeles, where traders, sex workers, and shoekeepers were required to pay certain pre-agreed taxes every week to be allowed to carry out their activities freely. In many communities in El Salvador and America, this is not a strange practice. People are forced to pay these fees through their noses or risk being killed in the most violent and gruesome manner for defying the gang. This practice was brought to light and drew a lot of attention across the U.S. in 2020 when about 3 transgender women were attacked in the park. One of the cases involved Daniela Hernandez, who had been approached by gang members Golden and La Inquieta to pay a fee of $80 every week. She recalled how she was shocked to find out that there was such a gang operating in that area, but had to negotiate with the gang members to pay $20 weekly. Still, tragedy struck as she was assaulted by the gang one fateful day. They sprang up on her as she sat on a bench, slashing her neck with a knife, stabbing her almost 15 times. She was left for dead until the police rescued her. Some of their other activities include drug trafficking, kidnapping, rape, and murder. In an interview by Brute, an ex-MS-13 member mentions the brutal way in which gang members kill people by hacking their bodies into 13 pieces. He said they do this to send reminders that they are in operation and should be feared. Recent studies and reports have shown that as the government continues to intensify efforts to clamp down on gang members, they are getting wider, and they continue to spread and divide like bacteria colonies. The MS-13 is one of the most most disorganized mafia groups with disjointed cliques in multiple communities. Yet this is their strongest power. There's no single leader to arrest, no straightforward hierarchy of authority. The many leaders are littered all over the place, and when one gets arrested, there's another ready to take up the baton. Security agents say that there's a new generation of gang members coming up who are not immigrants anymore. They say young American citizens are now being recruited into the gang in their numbers. One thing that gang members know how to do well is recruiting. They target young boys and either bully or entice them into joining gangs. These boys, who are barely teens, join the gangs for many reasons, ranging from mere youthful exuberance to peer pressure and fear. After a baptism of beatings for 13 seconds and the completion of a first assignment, they are initiated into the gang for life. What makes them more dangerous now is that there are no visible signs anymore. They now know that the police are looking out for certain colors and tattoos and some types of dressing, so they don't appear obvious anymore. They're silent, and many neighborhoods don't even know that the Mara Salvatrucha is there until they strike. For people so caught up in violence, you'd wonder if they have time for things of sentimental value. These gang members spend most of their earnings on drugs, alcohol, and women. Many gang fights and murders are also linked to relationship tussles, where a gang member fights or kills because he was either rejected or someone came too close to his wife or girlfriend. There have been several cases of women raped and killed because they turned down the advances of gang members or broke up with them, and even more cases of people being killed for getting intimate with the wives and girlfriends of MS-13 or offending them in any way. And this protection extends even behind prison walls. You're probably wondering how anyone can offer protection from jail, but before that, let's take a look at how and why young girls and women decide to be involved with these deadly gangsters. In an interview by The New Yorker, Alex Sanchez, a former MS-13 member who now helps to reform ex-gangsters, speaks about the story of a young girl from El Salvador. He says she was raped at 17 by members of an MS-13 rival gang known as Barrio 18 or 18th Street. She fled to Long Island to live with her mother and got enrolled in school, but she didn't find the peace she was seeking. Within a short period, she made a startling discovery. The 18th Street gang was there too, so she started to move with the boys of Mara Salvatrucha for safety. This is the story of many girls and women too. The streets are wild and unsafe, and dating or marrying a gang member comes with the promise of protection and provision. So many choose this path. Like young boys who join gangs for a sense of safety and belonging, many girls do likewise. But with this safety also comes a heavy price to pay: their freedom. A report by Insight Crime looks into how the wives and girlfriends of MS-13 gang members are forced to participate in their crimes and controlled. In an interview with the wife of an imprisoned gang member, she makes shocking revelations that question the integrity of the prison system. She revealed that her relationship with her husband started because she was in awe of the workings of the gang and had the desire to be with a gang member. Now, with 2 children, her husband, who was behind bars even before she met him, controls her life with the use of a cell phone and connections with other gang members outside the jail. She says that she receives money from him once every 2 weeks, visits him many times a month, and conducts operations for the gang. These operations include smuggling weapons, drugs, and other items. On one occasion, where she was caught smuggling drugs, she was arrested and made to serve a 3-year jail term. Yet, she is not alone, as she reveals that several women also visit their partners who are gang members in jail. These visits often include sexual relations, which explains why they have children. Not only are members of the MS-13 dangerous, but they are also jealous and vicious partners. Their women often have no choice but to stay with them or risk being killed. There have been several interviews with ex-MS-13 members, and most of them are conducted under police scrutiny or in hiding. Many of them are not even bold enough to show their faces. For Mara Salvatrucha, the only way out is death. Several gang members who have opted to leave have faced the death penalty at the hands of their own brothers. This includes a founding member, Ernesto Miranda, who forsook the gang and went back to El Salvador to build a new life and a family. He was shot to death and sent to an early grave by members of the gang he created. Many others remain in hiding, trying to get their tattoos off their bodies, wearing long clothing, and even using concealers on their faces. The average MS-13 gang member lives a life filled with violence from the day he joins till the day he dies. They either kill or get killed by rival gangs and police. Others end up in jail serving long prison terms. It leaves us wondering what the underlying motive for these gangs even is today. Whatever the gangs are, is it worth a violent life lived either in hiding or on the run? Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, why not click one of the 2 videos on the screen for more informative content?